Good evening, and welcome to the 2012 Foxborough Jaycees Candidates Night. The Jaycees are proud to present this annual forum so that you, the voters of Foxborough, have an opportunity to see the candidates running for public office and to hear their views on the issues that are relevant to the positions that they are seeking. My name is Dave Brown, and I am a proud member of the Foxborough Jaycees and your moderator for this evening's event. There are 14 candidates for 12 seats on the ballot this year. 10 of these candidates are running without opposition. To begin, on behalf of the Jaycees, I would like to commend all of these individuals who have stepped forward and made their commitment to serve the community through elected office. One of the lines in the Jaycee Creed states that service to humanity is the best work of life, and we applaud you for offering your talents and especially your time to serve Foxborough. Unfortunately, not all the candidates will have the opportunity to serve. This year, we have a single contested race for the Board of Selectmen. One of the tasks I have as moderator is to ensure that things run smoothly and that everything follows the rules, so let me explain the rules. First, let it be known that the Foxborough Jaycees, as an organization, cannot and will not endorse any particular candidate, nor can we espouse a particular political point of view. This is specifically prohibited in our chapter bylaws. However, since one of the strengths of the Jaycees is to provide leadership training, it should come as no surprise that many of our members are currently serving the community in a variety of town boards or may express their opinions or views in many public forums. Any actions or views expressed by those individuals are their views and theirs alone as individual citizens and do not reflect the views of the Foxborough Jaycees as an organization. As for the rules for tonight's event, each candidate will be allowed to start with a brief statement that shall not exceed 3 minutes. The candidates will then be asked a series of questions from our local journalists. The order in which the candidates speak and in which the panelists ask the questions was determined earlier today by random drawing. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer each question, after which the reporter may ask a follow-up question. If a follow-up question is asked, the candidate will have 1 minute to answer the follow-up question. Immediately after the question and answer period, each candidate will have 2 minutes to make closing remarks. And these, of course, all apply to the Selectmen's race. Before we get started, I would like to thank Mike Weber and his crew here from Foxborough Cable Access for their assistance in bringing this production to you. There are a number of people working hard behind the scenes to deliver this broadcast to you, and we could not have participated in this broadcast without their help. This year has presented a different challenge as the cable access studio is being renovated, so this program is being recorded from the high school. We did invite those candidates who are running unopposed to make an appearance tonight and speak for up to 5 minutes. Unopposed candidates for school committee and planning board positions would like to make statements. We will start with Kate Kaminsky, a school committee member who is an unopposed candidate for re-election to the school committee and would like to present a statement to us not to exceed 5 minutes. Thank you, Kate.
Good evening. I'm Kate Kaminsky, and I'd like to start by saying thank you to the Foxborough Jaycees, Foxborough Cable Access, and you, Dave Brown, for hosting Candidates Night. It has been an honor and privilege to serve you and our town for the last 9 years as a member of the Foxborough School Committee. I have also had the opportunity and benefit of being mentored by people such as Vin Igo, Frank Spillane, Tom Earhart, and Martha Slattery. While I always believed I could do this job well, they showed me how to do just that. How to build a budget that meets the needs of students while building value for our town and balancing the needs of taxpayers for the best return on their investment. Student achievement is strong, and as good as it may be, we need to keep improving. It remains one of our top goals each year. Our job is to make sure that students and teachers have the resources they need to learn and acquire the skills necessary to compete in their world and to balance these costs with our ability to pay for them as a town. That's why every year, for more than the last decade, we have returned money back to the town and taxpayers. As you know, we gave all of our federal stimulus money, more than $500,000, back to the town last year. Yes, almost $550,000. This is the way your school committee does its job for you. We will meet our commitment to you on a renovated Foxborough High School and return approximately $1.3 million to taxpayers. We have talented teachers and employees across the district. The reputation of the Foxborough Public Schools allows us to attract and retain the best. Boston Magazine has ranked Foxborough Public Schools in the state's top 50 school districts at number 36 out of 351 cities and towns. This brings real value to our town and to taxpayers. Our MCAS scores show we continue to increase the number of students across all grade levels, scoring in the high proficient and advanced categories. And we carefully review our scores in areas where we believe we can be better. We are strong overall and have continued to raise achievement scores by adding the right programs and services for students who struggle and for students with special needs. And we need to continue to do this for all students across all grade levels and levels of abilities. We've made great strides, and we need to keep pushing the bar of student achievement even higher. Since 2008, we have studied best practices and methods and have been able to implement numerous strategies to strengthen our district and what our district calls an enrichment program, and what I call a gifted and talented program for all students. I believe we need to continue to expand this important effort. Continually trying to improve means you have to talk about what's going well and what's not. We have, as a school committee, we have been able to have these kinds of discussions. I believe we do this with respect and courtesy for one another. My colleagues and I do so with gratitude for the trust and confidence you have in us. Your support means we can dedicate ourselves to keeping our school system achieving and returning value to our town. It has truly been an honor to serve you. Thank you for supporting me in the Foxborough School Committee, and thank you for voting on Monday, May 7th.
Thank you. I also have been asked to read a statement from Bruce Gardner, who is also running unopposed for the school committee. So let me begin. To the residents of Foxborough, I'd like to thank Mr. Brown and the Foxborough Jaycees for once again sponsoring a candidates night. Unfortunately, I am unable to attend in person as I am out coaching a Little League game with a number of our Foxborough youth as you read this. The focus of this event is better given to the contested seats for selectmen anyway. However, I appreciate the opportunity offered to us and would like to share a few brief thoughts and messages. As the current chair of the Foxborough School Committee, I am happy and pleased to report that we have had a very strong year as a committee. While there have been noise and emotion around a number of municipal issues, including but not limited to the casino discussion, our committee has purposely maintained an unwavering focus on the quality of instruction in our schools. We have worked hard to keep our focus on our classrooms, our teachers, our budget, our policies, our new superintendent, and most importantly, our children. It is my expectation that we will finish another strong academic and extracurricular year in all 5 of our school buildings. As my first term in elected office comes to an end, I am similarly pleased with the accomplishments of our committee over the past 3 years that I have served. We have had a great opportunity to hire a new superintendent, a new assistant superintendent, a new business manager, and most recently, a new high school principal. I am very pleased with all the individuals chosen, all of whom come with great reputations and support, and these choices will positively shape our educational system for years to come. During this time, we also successfully renegotiated all of our employee contracts. We did so in a way that was physically responsible to the town, but showed respect and care for our employees. For me, this was a great learning process. And of course, we have overseen our high school renovation project, which will come in on time and under budget. When I ran for office 3 years ago, I spoke of our strong community support and my desire to harness it for the improvement of our schools. Community support is a foundational requirement for us to achieve our goals. With all the things I have mentioned now in place, the next 3 years should be our time to focus on innovation, leadership, and high expectations in our classrooms. With your support, I look forward to helping on this agenda in a way that remains true to Foxborough's ideals and history. Thank you. Bruce Gardner. Next, we will hear, Gordon Green and Kevin Weinfeld are both members of the Planning Board and are running unopposed for their positions. They both have statements to make, and we will start first with Gordon Green.
Good evening. My name is Gordon Green, and I wish to thank the Jaycees and the Foxborough Cable Access for this opportunity to present my thoughts and positions. Having grown up in Foxborough, I benefited from the service of those who led our town when I was a youth and made it such a wonderful place to grow up in. I once asked my father, as he was going to a meeting, why he was on a school building planning committee, and he said, others had served for us, and it was now his turn to serve, and that my time would come in the future. I have served since then on the Housing Authority, Advisory Committee, School Planning and Building Committees, Long Range Planning, Town Government Study, and am now a candidate for re-election to the Planning Board. I support the continuing the character of Foxborough as a rural suburban community as compared to an urban suburb town. To accomplish this, we need a balance of single and multifamily housing, conservation land, open space, farming, recreation, and a vibrant commercial industrial activity which is needed to help support the town's activities. I have been actively involved in the implementation of the state hospital reuse plan, which is still a work in progress. The Chestnut Green redevelopment as a village within the community has been successful and should continue to be an asset to the town. We believe the current town master plan study will provide a roadmap for the orderly growth that will maintain the character of our town. This plan will provide overall goals with emphasis on revitalization of the downtown business area that will build on the beauty and character of the common, this redevelopment can only happen after sewer capacity has been expanded. The Route 1 corridor, which has the potential to provide substantially for increasing in our tax base, some changes will be needed in this area to encourage the growth and for smaller business activities. Over the years, the town has had two avenues of commerce, the East-West Railroad and the North-South Highway system. The nature of activities and potentials for each have changed with time and technology and will continue as we go into the future. Along the railroad, we started off with the straw hat industry, pneumatic instrumentation, electronic and now digital controls, and the downtown. Along the highways, we've had warehousing, office parks, limited industry, and now regional entertainment. Along the railroad, it will be important to support the industrial activities along the Ponset Avenue and the smaller business operations near Elm Street, Belcher Road, Springbrook Drive. And along this, one of the things that I think we should consider is communication via the trolley. I believe it's reasonable to consider a trolley system as compared to MBTA commuter trains to go from Patriot Place to Mansfield with stops at Chestnut Green, the center of town, and perhaps down in the Spring Street area. My positions. When we review a subdivision, we as the planning board, we must think of the new homeowners as future citizens of Foxborough. Be concerned about the project's neighborhood, whether in Foxborough or adjacent towns. Support our local business and treat them with respect. When reviewing a project, we must not extort nor be exploited. I oppose high-density housing, which is called 40B, smart growth zoning. Beware when the state comes offering you some money to make changes in your zoning. With regard to the casino, I am a non-gambler. However, a decision as to whether to allow gambling in town should be made by the largest possible number of voters by a town ballot vote. After we have had a proposal and the selectmen have had a chance to negotiate responsible terms and then have been able to make a recommendation for or against the proposal, the voters should make the decision. The site planning must be the planning board must be the planning board, with the support of outside consultants, must do a complete site plan review, including sizes, heights, stormwater, snow parking, lighting, noise appearance, traffic impacts on the area and the neighborhood, and traffic mitigation. And in the process, must protect the neighbors in our adjacent community of Walpole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Kevin Weinfeld, who is also running unopposed for the planning board. Kevin?
Thank you, Dave. My name is Kevin Weinfeld. I am the chairman of the Foxborough Planning Board. I am running for re-election and would appreciate your support on May 7th. First, I'd like to say thank you to the Jaycees, Foxborough Cable Access, and Dave Brown for offering us an opportunity to put our views out this evening. I've lived in Foxborough for 23 years, and I've served on town boards and committees for every one of those years. The late town moderator, Garrett Spillane, appointed me to the advisory board in 1989, where I became the vice chair. I then served on the planning board for 9 years, followed by 4 years as a selectman. I was elected to take Jerry Rodman's seat for 1 year and was re-elected for 3 more years. Since then, I have served for 6 years on the planning board. During all this time as an elected official, I have put the interests of our town of Foxborough first and foremost, and will continue to make sure that the planning board will shepherd appropriate growth, both commercial and residential, to ensure the character of our town is maintained. In a time when potential change is looming, it is critical that officials can provide both experience and consistency when giving consideration to new impacts on our community. The planning board is currently involved in developing a new master plan as well as a housing plan to assist us in meeting the state's required goal of 10% affordable housing. We have encouraged the citizens to participate in these programs so that we can make our town as good as possible going forward. Finally, as president of Mayfair Realty and Development Company, Incorporated, a second-generation Foxborough business in its 50th year of operation, I understand the obligation to give back to our community in the most important way, by giving one's time and volunteering. My goal is always to make our town better for all of the residents of Foxborough, both current and future. Please go to the polls on Monday, May 7th, and please give me your vote. Thank you for your time. Good evening.
Thank you. We will now take a short break, and when we return, you will meet the journalist as well as the candidates for selectmen. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Mics are down. Mics are all off.
Welcome back. Next, I would like to introduce the journalists on our questioning panel. It would be impossible for the Jaycees to run this event without their assistance in providing our candidates with questions that they have prepared for them. Tonight, we have two representatives from local newspapers. We have Frank Monema from the Foxborough Reporter and Heather McCarran from the Country Gazette. Thank you both for agreeing to participate in this program. The four candidates for a 3-year term as selectmen have taken their seats. There are 2 seats open for selectmen, so you'll be able to vote for 2 of the 4 candidates. Let me introduce them to you. Lorraine Brew, Larry Harrington, Martha Slattery, and Ginny Capola. We will first hear opening statements from the candidates and then next take a short break, and then we'll proceed with the actual questions from the media. It has been determined that Lorraine will go first. You have 3 minutes for your opening statement. Please begin when you're ready.
Good evening. My name is Lorraine Brew. I'm running for re-election to the Board of Selectmen, and I'm here tonight to ask for your support and your vote. I'd like to thank the Jaycees for hosting tonight's forum, Foxborough Cable Access volunteers, members of the press, and you, the voters, for taking the time to learn about the selectmen and the issues that we will face. By way of background, my husband Michael and I have lived in Foxborough for 24 years and have raised 2 wonderful sons, Alex and John. I have a Master of Science from Northeastern University and a certificate in healthcare management from Boston University. Professionally, I worked for 20 years in healthcare management and was responsible for budget and personnel management for a department of 200 employees with additional responsibilities of strategic planning, capital procurement, and project management, all skills that I believe are essential for serving on the board. I'm currently Chief Compliance Officer for an outpatient addiction treatment program based out of Boston and provide regulatory compliance support to our clinics in 5 states. For fun, I also work as a Zumba instructor for the YMCA. I teach fitness on site at the Foxborough Senior Center and also for mobility impaired residents of an assisted living facility. All very fulfilling to me. Since joining the board in 2009, I've worked hard to collaborate with citizens, town employees, businesses, and other board members to complete projects and develop approaches to meet goals and objectives. For example, working with Chief Ed O'Leary, liquor license holders, and others, we revised the liquor license regulation for the town, ensuring continued strong enforcement against violations. I chaired the Town Asset Review Committee, working to identify potential funding sources for future major renovation needs and additional revenue streams for the town. Also reviewed and revised the Town Committee Appointment Handbook and served as a member of the board's Budget Subcommittee. The casino issue has taken a position in the forefront of our public discussion. As I've stated many times before, I do not support the development of a casino in Foxborough, as I believe that it is not in keeping with the town's character, and I further believe that it will affect the quality of life of in our town. However, there are many other important issues facing our town. I will continue to support strong public safety, excellent public schools, revenue generation via sensible development, water and sewer improvements and negotiations, and most importantly, advocate for open, transparent communication. My top priority will be to continue to represent the citizens and businesses of Foxborough with integrity, fiscally conservative management, and an informed analytical approach. Let's work together to preserve Foxborough's greatest asset, its community. Join me in building a better Foxborough where we put Foxborough first. Thank you very much.
We are now ready to hear from our second selectman candidate for a 3-year term, Larry Harrington. Larry, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement. Please begin when you are ready.
Thank you, Dave. My name is Larry Harrington. My wife, Judy, and our son, Adam, have lived in Foxborough for 18 years. I want to begin by thanking the Jaycees for hosting this important event and the Foxborough Cable Access volunteers, as well as the newspaper. I am a certified public accountant. I am a certified internal auditor, and I have spent over 25 years working at several Fortune 200 companies at the vice president level, vice president of finance, human resources, operations, and the last 8 years as vice president of internal audit for Raytheon Company. I served on a planning board. One term as a member of the Mansfield Board of Selectmen in the 1980s. Then when I decided not to run for re-election, without my name even on the ballot and 4 people running for the seat, I was the top vote getter because the people of Mansfield trusted me and wanted me to run again, wanted me to serve another term. So I did. Foxborough has trusted me equally as well, electing me first to the school committee and then to the Board of Selectmen. Some say this election is about one issue, but I disagree. There are many issues to be addressed over the next few years. However, regarding the resort casino, I support letting all 11,000 voters decide this issue. While some people need no more information to oppose the project, others want the Board of Selectmen to negotiate the best possible host agreement. Then let the voters themselves debate the pros and cons of the project and either vote it up or down. This has been a rugged 6 months. The town has been torn apart, not by the casino issue, but as stated this week in the editorial by Robert Gillis, by people who have declared war and divided us through hatred, resentment, and bad feelings. This is not the Foxborough I know and love. I couldn't disagree more with Ginny and Lorraine, and I believe the only way to bring the town back together is to let the 11,000 voters make the decision and then allow us to move on. I don't understand why people are so afraid to let the 11,000 voters decide the issue. This election is a forum to make sure that your voice is heard. So what are some of the other tough issues? For one, it's a lack of leadership and credibility at Town Hall, with employees, with taxpayers, and businesses. One day we're told the sky is falling. The Town Hall leadership says there's no money for raises. They urge to cut expenses, to split the tax rate. And then all of a sudden, when that's all done, they tell us we're flush with cash and we don't even have to raise taxes to the full 2.5% next year unless we want to add additional spending, which was suggested by some. Trust is important and it's lacking at Town Hall. Property taxes are critical, and I voted in the minority this week not to raise property taxes to the maximum 2.5%. Upon joining the school committee, Martha and I advocated returning nearly $500,000 unspent dollars to the town, despite protests from someone who later joined the Board of Selectmen. I urged on the school committee for health care reform because nothing was being done. And when I got on the Board of Selectmen, I found the committee was doing nothing. Today, working collaboratively with our unions, we are now saving over $500,000. We face major capital issues with the town hall, and then after that, Borough and the Taylor schools. The taxpayer, especially seniors and young families, can't sustain endless increases in property taxes. We're already paying the burden of the public safety building, the high school, and the library, and not putting anything away for when in another 20 to 30 years these are paid off, we start the building boom all over again. We need better long-term financial planning. I have been seasoned in the last 12 months as chairman of the board and best prepared for the challenges ahead. I ask for your vote on May 7th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are now ready to hear from our third selectman candidate, and that would be Martha Slattery. Martha, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement. Please begin when you are ready.
Good evening. My name is Martha Slattery. I'd like to thank the Jaycees and Cable Access for putting this debate on this evening, and a special thanks to you at home who will take the time to watch. For the past 14 years, I have devoted my efforts to the students of this town. I am very proud of the committee, that all the committee has accomplished during this time. We have a school system that we as a town can be very proud of. We worked very hard with the town to maintain a good relationship, especially when it came to budget talks, and have always worked together through our cuts. 3 years ago, I also ran for this office, and I knew I would be running again to try and sit on the town side and try to bring my experience and knowledge of issues that are facing this town. I was committed long before the issue of a casino appeared on the horizon. I have found it ironic that I have been dubbed pro-casino because I know I have never uttered those words to anyone. I firmly believe that whoever sits as a selectman should be here to represent every citizen of this town and should be able to do that without any reservations at all. Being for or against any issue before it's presented, to me, is political suicide. There are many issues that need to be addressed: roads, water and sewer issues, trying to get viable businesses to come, add to the tax base, stimulate jobs, and attract the support of our citizens so that we can flourish and stay here is extremely difficult. We should look to trim our budget and do the unthinkable, make any and all necessary cuts in order to stockpile money for future endeavors. Wouldn't it be nice to just once have ready cash for something we didn't expect? We should not add positions we might not be able to support in the long run. We need to continue to monitor insurance rates and work with our employees to offer affordable coverage that continues to cover their health concerns. We need to make sure that our seniors will be able to live out their years here on a tight fixed income. I soon will be one of those seniors. We need to maintain our buildings so in 30 years we aren't looking to tear them down because they are now beyond repair. All major projects, such as the town hall, should be vetted at town meeting, so as a town we can decide how and when it needs to be done and at what expense. Public safety and the appropriate staffing should never be downgraded or compromised. We need to find ways to pay down our debt, not prolong it or offer projects for consideration we know the taxpayers are already struggling to support. We need to maintain a positive working relationship with our business partners on Route 1, and we need to start working together to do the things that have a more positive effect on this community. I would welcome the challenge to sit as your next select woman.
Thank you. We are now ready to hear from our fourth select person candidate for a 3-year term, and that would be Ginny Capola. Ginny, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement. Please begin when you are ready.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you to the Foxborough Jaycees, Foxborough Cable Access for the opportunity to participate in this candidates' night. I am running to represent you on the Board of Selectmen because I'm at a perfect place in my life to fully commit my time and experience to once again serve the people and business owners of Foxborough. My relationship with Foxborough began in 1978 when my family-owned business relocated here. Within a year, we built a home, and in short order, my brother-in-law and his family and both sets of parents moved to Foxborough, making it truly our hometown. Mike and I soon became tireless volunteers. My most favorite experience was on the Founders Day Committee, of which I was a founding member. In 1997, I began my government experience at the state level when I became the legislative aide of State Representative Barbara Highland, leaving in 1999 to care for my ailing parents. In 2001, I was appointed to the Advisory Committee and served for 4 years. My time there was in education and municipal government with insight on budgets, town government structure, and the need for collaboration, openness, and transparency among town departments for the benefit of all residents. In 2003, I was appointed by the Board of Selectmen to the Racetrack Citizens Advisory Committee, which was charged with the investigation of the impacts of casino development on host communities. This committee was formed as the town's proactive approach to the possibility of the passage of a gaming bill that would allow casinos and slot parlors in Massachusetts. In November of 2004, town meeting voted in the current bylaw that prohibits gaming in our town due to the information provided by the Racetrack Committee's final report. The information and experience that I gained from my participation on this committee shaped the position on gaming that I still hold today. In 2006, I was elected to the office of State Representative for the 1st Bristol District following the passing of my husband. On my return to Beacon Hill, I renewed old connections and began new relationships with my legislative colleagues, which I enjoy to this day. In closing, I am running this year to finally honor the requests of many residents and friends to bring my talents to the Board of Selectmen. In fact, over the last few years, each of my co-candidates on this stage, Larry, Martha, and Lorraine, have each asked me to run for selectman, thereby giving credence to my credentials. Some of these candidates who now oppose my candidacy may try to persuade you that my views are outdated or my experience minimal. However, I can assure you that my many supporters, your friends and neighbors, trust in my institutional knowledge and experience to make the tough decisions on issues facing us today based on fact and investigation. I am running for selectman to serve you because my only agenda is what is best for the town of Foxborough. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now take a short break, and when we return, we will begin with the questions. Thank you. back, and we will start with the questions. The first question will be from Frank Mortimer, and it will be directed towards Larry, and all of the other candidates will answer the question after that. Frank?
Thank you, Dave, and thank you very much for founding this event about 20 years ago with someone else. I want to thank all the selectmen candidates for volunteering to serve this town that I and my family live in, and all the other people who volunteer. The first question is, picture that the year is now 2022. That's 10 years from today. It turns out that a casino was built in Foxborough. What does the town look like? How has it changed for the better and or the worse? Please be as specific as possible.
I'm glad you started with the easy questions first, Frank.
I knew it was as easy as the profiles, Larry.
It's a tough question because every development is different. This is not an Indian casino, for instance. This has been set up with a lot of regulation by the state of Massachusetts, so it's going to be very different. But if it's 10 years forward, we've been able to reduce property taxes by 20 to 25%, because when they came in, we were earning almost $15 million a year, and the Board of Selectmen was smart enough to pass that back to the taxpayers, the seniors who want to stay here, who are struggling to pay their taxes, as well as the youth. In addition to that, we negotiated a host agreement so that all the additional police and fire and other personnel that were needed to handle a development this size were there and paid for separately. It also created in excess of the 4,000 jobs, and many people from Foxborough were gainfully employed in the restaurants, in the hotel, in the resort center, as well as the casino. Yes, there were challenges. There always will be. You could put an office building there and you'd have all sorts of traffic in the morning and the evening. But the town of Foxborough worked collaboratively with the state to improve Route 1, to deal with the traffic issues, to deal with the neighborhood issues. And the lower taxes have helped increase property taxes, not decrease property taxes. While it's problematic at times, when there's a football game, we've been able to work through that. And overall, the citizens have been very happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Martha?
Larry's always tough to follow. I think cosmetically, I don't think the town would change. We're not going to cement over the common. I think the town itself would probably remain the way it is. There's not a lot of buildable land left in Foxborough, and the houses they're building at this point are very high-end. So I don't know that it's going to have the tremendous impact that you might think it's going to have on the school system. Ironically enough, if our seniors are not able to stay within this town, there's probably a lot of four-bedroom houses that would open up for growing families, and that certainly would impact our school system. A lot of people have questioned me as far as what jobs might be available. There are various people in this town that have lost more than one job, and at this point are out of work, and they said they would welcome the opportunity to have a job close by. So I can see the pros and cons. I think until you sit down and you negotiate something, and 10 years out, you look back, did I make a mistake? I'm not. I think that's hard to predict, Frank. But I think if a community works together, stays together, then I think they can weather through just about anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Coppola? Ginny? Sorry, same question.
Well, I respectfully disagree with the last two candidates because I think in 2022, I don't think there will be a casino sited on Route 1. And this is my reasoning. As the gaming bill is written, the negotiating entity of the town of Foxborough, which is the Board of Selectmen, have the ability to say yes or no whether they want to go into negotiations on a host community agreement. If the Board of Selectmen, as the policymakers of the town of Foxborough, decide that a casino is not the best for the town, then they have the right to say, no, we do not want to negotiate, and it is done. The gambling bill is very specific. It allows, it gives protections to host communities whether or not to allow a casino development in their community. And I would think that from the past vote in December of 2011, there was a 3-2 vote to send a letter to Governor Patrick, the Gambling Commission, Mr. Kraft, and Mr. Wynn to let them know that the town of Foxborough, through the selectmen as the negotiating entities of the town, have decided not to begin negotiations because in their thoughts, that would not be a good development. And I, when I get on the board, would also say no. Thank you.
Next, and finally, Lorraine.
Okay, Frank, I don't like the picture you've just presented at all, obviously. I also believe that the way the gaming legislation is written up right now, the Board of Selectmen, as leaders, have spoken already for the town. So I do not believe that in 2012 this will be anything that we have to worry about. However, just to answer your kind of story that you're trying to portray here, if there is a casino in a town called Foxborough in 2022, they will be receiving many millions of dollars in mitigation from the Wynn Group or whoever owns it at that time, because most likely it won't be Mr. Wynn, given his past history. And that mitigation will go to the increased traffic, the increase in crime, the increase in drunk drivers, the gambling problems, the impact on our schools. All those things will be using all of that mitigation money to deal with all of the negative effects that a casino would bring to any town. I do not believe it will happen to Foxborough because of the position that the current Board of Selectmen has taken, and I believe that the future board will also take that same position, and the board members are elected as leaders for the town, and therefore, by making that decision, they are acting in the best interests of the town.
Thank you. Our next question. Yes.
Just, thank you, David. Ginny touched on the legislation, and I am truly confused about something that's in the town right now, and that's regarding whether or not the Board of Selectmen, when they made that vote that Ginny referred to on December 27th, 3-2, not to welcome a casino, that they did something wrong. My understanding, that's what has been portrayed. Did the selectmen do anything wrong by taking that vote, or does the legislation set a rule that the selectmen take their vote and the townspeople take their vote? Have the selectmen deprived the townspeople of anything through that vote?
So you want me to keep the first rebuttal?
Yes, thank you, Larry. I'm sorry.
Frank, first of all, I don't think the selectmen did anything wrong. I was in the minority. I voted on the two. But I think the selectmen certainly have the prerogative. The Board of Selectmen felt that they wanted to send a strong message to the governor, to the gaming commissioner, and to the Kraft organization and the Wynn organization. But I do believe they deprived the citizens of Foxborough. And I think that the way we've been divided has been difficult. And I think that the only way, and one of the anti-casino people, Mark Tard, has a wonderful video out that people can see, and he describes very clearly what is happening and what will continue to happen. And I think that the Board of Selectmen owes it to the 11,000 people to give them an opportunity. So we should negotiate a host agreement, the best that we can do. Let the 11,000 voters then debate the issue and let them decide if it's a good enough issue or not. I am convinced the folks that are against it will be able to present all the arguments that they need. The folks that are for it can present all the arguments they need, and the voters of Foxborough can quickly decide if this is right or wrong for them.
Martha, would you like to respond to that follow-up question?
Yes. I think one of the things that I found interesting about that vote that night, it was done very quickly. And it was, I think the community to some degree was even blindsided by it because they thought somebody was coming to talk about this. Ironically enough, when people realized what happened that night, they were a little bit taken back, and it was like, well, what about me? don't I have a say in this? 5 people just kind of decided for me without giving me any information. So, you hear from a variety of people. I think ironically enough, when this gaming commission sits, they might even take a look at that, because you've got 5 people representing the community, but the community is not representing itself in that they're not having the overall say on this, because they're ultimately being deprived of their vote and their freedom to come up and express how they feel about it at a town meeting, which is really our representative form of government. We elect 5 selectmen to sit and decide for things for us. But I can't help but wonder if they might not take a look at that and say, wait a minute, should 5 people really be deciding this without allowing the town to have some input? We'll see.
Ginny, would you like to?
That vote in December 2011 was given as a courtesy to the craft and win organizations, just to let them, to answer their question that if, or their statement that if the town decided they didn't want to have anything to do with the casino, then they would back off. After that vote, the craft and win organization decided that then they were going to follow the letter of the law. The gambling statute gives the policymakers of the town the ability to say yes or no, or whether they would go into negotiations on a host community agreement. All that does is it allows the town to follow the gaming statute. That is the way it was written. It was written that way to provide protections to a community, to let the community decide whether they wanted a casino or not. And the Board of Selectmen, as representatives of the community, are the policymakers of the community. And so that, to me, would make their decision, yes or no, whether to go into a host community agreement, a valid choice.
Lorraine, would you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, Frank, the letter in December was written in response to a letter that was received by the Board of Selectmen from counsel for the Wynn Group, who wanted to know who they can start sitting down with to negotiate a host community agreement, as required by law, was the term I believe they used in the letter. I felt it important that we, at that time, we had to take a stand. We had to identify what our positions were as members of the board, as leaders of the town, and we also had to advise the Wynn Group that whatever the majority wanted was the case. And the majority of this board is not in favor of entering a host community agreement, despite their characterization that we are required to enter into negotiations. The executive, the leadership of a town does not have to do that. So I believe the position was a strong one, and unfortunately, we continue to be barraged by Wynn Group communication, ignoring the stand that we've taken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question will come from Heather McCarron. And Heather, you will be posing that question to Martha Slattery for the first response.
I'm going to carry this conversation forward a little bit more. Sorry. These kind of developments, they always take a long time. Do you really feel that the decision, yes or no, had to be made so quickly? And I'm going to go with Martha. You said, do 5 people really have the right to make the decision for the whole town without the people being able to speak about their feelings? And do 5 people really have the right to tell a business, we're not going to listen to your proposal, we're not even going to give you the chance?
I think you deprive the citizens of the town the information that they're required to have. They can vote you in, they can vote you out, they can recall you, they can do whatever they want if they're not happy with you. And I think the community was a little bit blindsided. I mean, a lot of people are asking, why can't we just have the information? Why can't we make up our own minds? And why can't we bring our vote forward? And that's the mandate for the selectmen. Instead, we have people who have strong feelings on both sides of the other. I'd just like to hear the proposal. I think we're all entitled to that. And then we can make an informed decision as to whether or not this town wants to enter into any sort of an agreement or whatever with them. And I think the selectmen should get their direction from the town, that they shouldn't be closed-minded or just listening to their friends, their group of followers, the people who are trying to get them elected. You know, when I've made tough decisions sitting on the school side. Did I please everybody? No. Did I try to listen to everybody? Yes. Did I try to make a decision that was based on facts? Yes. Right now, we don't have any facts. We have hysteria. We have concerns. We have, you know, people have strong feelings about gambling one way or the other. I'm not sure if I want a casino in Foxborough. I'm really not. And it's not going to impact me because I live on the other side of town. It's going to be up on Route 1. I will never see it from my house. But I appreciate the fact that people will live close to it, that it will affect the surrounding neighborhoods, that it will affect the surrounding towns. And I think you have to be mindful of everything. But I think somebody owes it to somebody to listen. And then the selectmen should get their direction from the citizens in this town, each and every one of them. Not just the people who vote, but the people who live here, the people who pay taxes, the people who are concerned about what might happen to the character of this town. Thank you.
Ginny? Same question.
Well, the Board of Selectmen had every right to send that message by a 3-2 vote to the Wynn and the Craft Organization. And they could base that decision on the zoning that is in place since 2004 that prohibits gaming in the town of Foxborough. All the Board of Selectmen was doing at that time is upholding the zoning rules and regulations of the town. In 2004, the citizens of Foxborough made it quite clear that they were not interested in having gaming in Foxborough, which would mean a casino. So the Board of Selectmen did take their cues from the town, and they voted appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Lorraine?
Yes, I think the decision is one to be made by the Board of Selectmen. Again, taking into consideration the history, the Planning Board had presented us a lot of information on the history of the voting on gambling and zoning back when this was first, a suggestion was first made in September to change the zoning in town. And that was, at first, unanimously voted down. Certain members of the board subsequently changed their mind. But I think, you know, the real issue here is that we are acting in a timely fashion. We received a letter in December. We responded to it. We were not interested in entering into a host community agreement then. That's the authority of the board to do that. And that is not, the board didn't make that up. That's how the legislation is written. So that's how we would act. Saying that, what are the anti-casino people afraid of? The anti-casino people are not, individuals are not afraid of anything. They have researched and educated themselves, and they have made their decision based on that education of themselves. And so, as I sit here, again, representing what I believe are the interests of the majority of the residents of the town, I think that the position that's in place right now is the correct one, and I will continue to remain steadfast in that position. I don't think anyone has been deprived of their rights. That's what this election process is all about. People vote who they want to represent them. And so I think that the process works. We should let the voters decide how they want the town represented, and I believe the outcome will be favorable, and there will not be a casino in the town of Foxborough.
Thank you. Larry, same question?
Heather, I think it's a very good question. I'm glad you asked it, because I think it's going to be probably 2 years, according to the new commissioner, before they have all the rules written, everything is submitted, and they make any decisions as to where something would go. If you then take that, and whether it was approved in Foxborough or not, it would not even open until long after this next term, whoever the two people are out of office. So I think it is a question when you say, is it kind of in a hurry? I'd also say that, you know, when my son was young, I learned very quickly, the more I said no, the more he wanted to do something. And I think the anti-casino folks who have used this no, 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 let's squash this and not let anybody see it, is created actually more demand for people to want to know the facts. They want to know what it's going to be about. How could it impact it? What's the good things? What are the bad things? How would you handle that? I trust the 11,000 people in this community. They are smart. They are intelligent. And you know, when you talk about the 2004 zoning, for 50 years we had gaming in Foxborough. Zoning changes over time as a community changes. I heard the other night one of my opponents talk about in 2004 we wanted new zoning at Route 1 so it didn't look like Saugus, the restaurants and everything else. Well, that's what Patriot Place looks like. And Patriot Place was put in there by the community because they saw the need. They saw the economic need, they saw the jobs, they saw the tax revenue. And so zoning is meant to change over time as the community changes. And the only way to measure whether the community has changed is to allow the community to have that input. And that's why the first early discussion was around maybe going to zoning first, giving people an opportunity to discuss it. That didn't work. Then it was about a host agreement. That didn't work. But over time, more and more people have heard more and more information, and now we have radio ads and we have television ads and letters to our houses each week, and more people are saying, what harm is it to at least listen to the proposal, understand it, and let the 11,000 voters make up their own mind? And I trust them to do the right thing, and I will accept whatever their decision is. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will come from Frank, and it will be posed to Ginny Capola.
Thank you, Dave. And this is probably a good time for me to just quickly say to my fellow Foxborough residents that there are a few questions here about the casino thing, and there is a ferocious interest in the topic. So although we haven't talked about road sidewalks and may not tonight, my apology. We'll see. My question for now is, all or nearly all of the nearly all leaders of religious congregations in Foxborough have taken a published position against the casino coming to Foxborough. How much weight should town officials and voters give to this recommendation from the clergy against the casino?
Well, I think people have their own opinions on whether they think a casino would be good or bad for the town. And I think the religious leaders also have their right to base their opinions. But, I think that's just one set of opinions that people can consider. I don't think it gives any more weight than any other opinion. But I respect it. People have, my view is gambling is gambling. And the only reason that gambling is an issue right now is because it was passed by the state legislature as a revenue stream for the Commonwealth. So, but my concern is whether a casino is the proper development for the town of Foxborough. And in my research on my days on the Racetrack Citizens Advisory Committee, I learned what the detrimental effects of casino siting could do to small towns in Connecticut, North Stonington, Ledyard, and Preston. And they were forever changed. And I've read things where people have said if they had known 20 years ago that what they know now in regard to the casino siting in their communities, they would have fought it, they would have fought it harder, and they would not have allowed it to be introduced in their communities.
Thank you. Lorraine, same question?
Yes, Frank, I think that the religious leaders in the town who grouped together and made the statement against the casino, I think that it's significant because it's known that one of the impacts of gambling, there are tremendous impacts on family situations as a result of gambling problems that people develop. And so I believe, given the fact that the religious community often acts as counselors to families, I think perhaps they are also educated on those issues and how those gambling problems can impact families. So I believe that may have been a part of the reason why they would have come forward and voiced such a strong opinion against a casino, because they deal with the family the outcome of that. I think that, Again, it just shows that people in the town are educating themselves on the issue. They're recognizing the problems that arise from casino, that arise from gambling, and this is just another example of why I believe the board has taken the right position in not wanting to enter into a host community agreement. I think the other thing is, talking about entering into negotiations, to me it's like we'd be entering into a huddle to come up with a strategy for a game that the rules don't even exist for. So it makes no sense to enter into any type of negotiation because who knows what the strategy needs to be developed, because we don't know the rules of the game. Those rules have to be established. The one rule we know in the existing legislation is that the Board of Selectmen are the people who are in control of whether or not to enter into that agreement. And again, I think the position taken right now is the right one. The clergy's position is just supporting that as other citizens have supported that. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question to Larry.
Heather, my Irish Catholic grandmother played bingo 7 nights a week. She spent a lot of money on bingo, and she could easily find a Catholic school or a Catholic church that was sponsoring it every night. So I think that while some religious leaders certainly have their views, I find it interesting when people talk about the problems, because there certainly are problems with gaming. 2% of the people become addicted. But you know something? Those folks that are addicted are going to drive 20 miles north of Foxborough to the next casino, or they're going to drive 20 miles south into Rhode Island. So those folks who have a problem are going to find a way. They can find a way today through the internet and other sources. Massachusetts was so unique. It didn't just pass the legislation. It studied Connecticut and every other community. And yeah, you can look back 20 years ago. The Native Americans came into Connecticut. They had no mitigation. They had no negotiation of host committees. The Massachusetts legislators studied this for years, and they put safeguards in. For instance, not only do the Board of Selectmen have to be involved, not only does it have to be a ballot question, but we'd also, in this town, also have to have a 2/3 vote. Then it goes to the state. There are lots of safeguards, and the state put money aside. They don't plan on spending all the money. They're going to put money into programs to help those 2%, because they know that 2% is hurting today. They're using the internet, they're going to Rhode Island, they're going to Connecticut. And again, this is not Connecticut. We have legislation today that prevents the kinds of abuses that they had. And if you look at some of the studies, initially Connecticut was going to share the money with the cities and towns, and now the vast majority of the money collected goes to the state. Here, not only will the local community get some $15 million, property tax, meals tax, sales tax, personal property tax, but Massachusetts requires them to pay all the cost of mitigation. Any impact on traffic, safety, schools, Board of Health, etc., they have to pay extra for that. There was none of that in Connecticut. This is very different.
Thank you. Martha, same question?
I think anytime any town's religious leaders weigh in on something, it certainly does have an impact. It does give you pause for thought. Ironically enough, there's a lot of churches that have sustained themselves with bingo parlors, and if you have a child in a Catholic school, I know my patients always complain that they not only have to donate their time, they're required to if they have children in the school. So there's a little bit of a different pressure put on them. But, certainly you're going to listen to your religious leaders because they listen to their parishioners and they know the struggles that they go through. And certainly it does have an impact on your decision. I'd be remiss if I told you otherwise.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Heather, and it will be directed to Lorraine.
Okay. So if not a casino, then what do you think is an appropriate development? Because that land's going to be eventually developed. He's not going to let it just sit there, probably.
The process that the town is going through right now, the master plan program, is the ideal approach to be taken to identify what would be the smart type of commercial growth that we should be looking forward to in that area or in any area in the town. I think the way the process has been set up is excellent, identifying what people love about the town, identifying what residents hate about the town, and then giving the residents the opportunity to say if they had their magic wand, what would they do to improve the town. some of the suggestions that I saw written up at the town hall by people who had started commenting were, what about looking at an assisted living facility? What about looking at some type of educational program that could possibly be set up out on Route 1, for example? Those are just some of the examples. So as a result of that planning process, I think we will be able to identify what really makes sense to do and be able to identify all of the infrastructure changes that we're going to have to make to support whatever smart commercial growth is suggested for the future there.
Larry, same question?
3 years ago, when I was running for the board, I advocated for an update of the master plan because it was very old, and I have fought to make sure we get the funding. And the purpose, as Lorraine just identified, of the master plan is to give the community an opportunity to not only look at the vacant land and see what you might want to do with it, what's the highest and best use, but in some cases it's looking at land that's already developed and seeing if there's a better redevelopment opportunity for that. The problem is there are no magic wands. So you can ask in a plan, if you had a magic wand, what would you want? There's an economic reality today. Out on Route 1, they were marketing office buildings for several years. But with the economic climate today, with the financial climate, the Kraft organization has told us that they have approached every major corporation in America in an effort to bring them to Foxborough so that they could develop an office park. And they were not successful at doing that. So in one sense, it's great to sit here and dream what you might like to have there, but the reality is economics and what you can attract there and what you can't attract there. It has to be complementary to what we have. Obviously, if you could build an office building with the restaurants that are there and the retail stores that are there, more employees would be helpful to hope that whole area do well. But we're in tough economic times. We're still struggling as a globe. And when you look at the forecast, I mean, can you imagine how the mortgage rates at 3.5%? Even my parents didn't see mortgage rates that low. So we're still looking at a very tough economy over the next 3 to 5 years, and that's going to dictate what can. How many opportunities are we going to have for that kind of development? I'm not sure, but the economics are going to determine what goes on Route 1 and what's going to be successful there.
Martha, same question?
I think it's, first of all, we don't own the land on Route 1. So to try and tell them exactly what they need to do with their land is a little bit one-sided. You know, when you talk about trying to bring in educational facilities, they're going to stick with the areas where the academia already is. If you bring in some sort of a business facility, a biotech or whatever, they're going to bring their people from where they're coming. If you get 50 jobs out of it, I think you'll be lucky. I think the traffic that would create, I think we all remember in the Foxborough Company, you just stayed away when they opened and you stayed away when they closed. The police were up there and they got everybody in and out of those parking lots as fast as they could, and it's the same scenario. When you look at Route 1, if you take a ride down there, there are some empty, you know, buildings that were there from before, restaurants, whatever. They're falling down, they're deteriorating. That whole section, other than the section that the Patriot Place is built up, is totally unattractive. And it's not going to demand the type of things that we really want to come in there. You know, and I think we sent a very bad message recently when we had a split real estate tax. We're saying we're not user-friendly and that if you're a business, you're going to have to pay more. Big Y tried to come in here, and the demands we put on them, they walked away from the project. So, you know, sometimes I think you have to be careful what you ask for, be careful what you demand, and these people can go wherever they want. And if you make it so unattractive that they're not going to come here, we're going to have as much empty land as we have right now. You know, it's not that I don't think the Kraft organization hasn't tried to get somebody in there. They have. But unfortunately, the economic times, it's just not in our favor right at the moment. So I think we have to understand that it's not just up to us. We can have the master plan to match all master plans. But unless you can get somebody to come in here and do something, it's just not going to happen.
Thank you. Ginny, same question?
Martha mentioned that Big Y decided not to build in Foxborough for the demands of the Foxborough. The reason the Big Y pulled out is because what the state of Massachusetts was going to impose on the Big Y for improvements to Route 1. It was not the town of Foxborough that discouraged the Big Y. It was the requirements of the state. That area on Route 1 where the casino is proposed is part of a special economic zone that was put up there for high-end development. It was supposedly put there for 9 to 5, Monday through Friday development that would not interfere with the weekend activities at the stadium. The craft organization agreed with that zoning and worked with the planning board and the Board of Selectmen at the time to establish that zoning because they knew that that would be the best interest for their own organization. We have zoning bylaws that do not allow gaming in the town of Foxborough. That is very clear to anyone who proposes that right off the bat, the town doesn't allow it. So why would you continue and continue and continue and barrage the town with all this information about a proposal that is not even allowed in the town? Now, I'm not saying that we're telling Mr. Kraft what to do with his land. We are advising him what he cannot do with his land by statute. That's all. The town has the right to control its own development. We have a right as a community to say, yes, we want this in there. No, we do not think that is a good idea for the town. That's our right. And I would defend that right as a selectman and uphold those zoning bylaws.
Thank you. Our next question will be from Frank, and Frank, you'll be posing the question to Larry.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Larry, Foxborough has already issued 43 licenses to sell or serve alcohol, which is more than any of Foxborough's neighboring towns. How many more would you support for the growth of business in town, and what measures does the town need to take to control underage drinking and alcohol abuse?
Good question, Frank. Just before I answer that, zoning was meant to change, and people can change the zoning. It's never cast in concrete. But to go to your question, yes, we have more. The town added more than a dozen when they put in Patriot Place. The town debated the issue. The studies showed how many issues they thought would arise, how many additional police they would need, how many additional fire that they would need. The town put a lot of comprehensive thought into that, and they got mitigation money in order to do that. It's been an economic boon. You can imagine what Foxborough would be like today if we didn't have that revenue, not to mention the meals tax revenue that we get out of that as well. So it's been an economic boon. Right now, we do have an issue. We have a number of drinking is at an epidemic level in the United States. Boston was voted the drunkest city in the nation this last year. So we have adults and children, not just underage children. We have a bigger problem in this country with adults. Just saw on the news the other night, people with the 8th and 9th DUI. How could you get 8 or 9, you'd think? So what I called for the other night was a forum bringing all of our restaurants, all of our package stores, all of those with a license together, where we can talk through what are the best practices out there. How do we take and address the issues? What are the real problems? What are the core problems? And how do we collectively, with our public safety people and those that are experts in that field, how do we take and improve the situation? Is it an issue with people being overserved? Is it an issue of people going there irresponsibly before they even get there? We've had situations where people have been refused to enter a restaurant because of what they've had to drink before they get there. So this problem is not unique to our town. It's all over. And whether we had half the places that we have, we'd still have an issue. Drinking in America is a major issue, and we have to face it, and we need to talk about it, and we need to identify ways that we can improve it, and that's why I want the forum.
Thank you. Same question to Martha?
I think 43 liquor licenses is probably about maximum. In fact, it's over maximum, probably for a town of this size. But when you look at where it is and what it is, and they're not all in the same restaurant at the same time, so it is spread out to some degree. My concern is over-serving more than anything else, and having people properly managed, and the staff that is there to be able to identify people that shouldn't be served or shouldn't be allowed into establishments. I'm very concerned about underage drinking. I think as parents, we need to know when our kids come home and what condition they're in. We need to know where they are and what they're doing. You know, I think we as parents can do a better job as tracking our children because they are our responsibility. I don't drink, so my eyes are wide open all the time, and I'm very aware of what's going on around. But I think we probably do have enough liquor licenses at this point. I don't think we could sustain any more. But my concern is the over-serving and tracking these people down.
Thank you. Same question to Ginny?
43 liquor licenses that's a lot of liquor licenses for a community. When Patriot Place went in, they asked for special legislation to provide them with, I believe, 12 additional liquor licenses for the establishments up there. Now, liquor licenses are usually granted to a town by population, and when you want to get more licenses after you exceeded your allotment, it takes special legislation to provide those licenses. Those 12 licenses was part of special legislation that actually I filed on behalf of the town of Foxborough. To get additional licenses, you would still need legislation to provide them. And the legislation is not going to be, they're not going to file legislation for one beer and wine license that somebody might want. If you go up there for more licenses, you have to have a really good reason for them to be granted to you. And my concern is that the legislature would look at the town of Foxborough and say, you've got 43. Do you really need more? What is your plan? How is the Board of Selectmen being responsible in distributing their liquor licenses, which they have control of? So 43 is a lot.
Thank you. Lorraine, same question?
Yes. I believe that 43 liquor licenses is quite adequate. The special legislation to add the 12 was appropriate for the nature of the project and have been a terrific asset to the town in terms of meals tax revenue, real estate, taxes, etc. One of the goals and objectives of the Board of Selectmen was to review and revise the liquor license regulations. I worked with Chief O'Leary on that and also with Dave Brown and others for about 10 months. We revised them, and as part of that, we did a presentation where we identified that we have a unique situation here, which we called a hospitality zone. That's comprised of an area like Patriot Place or Chestnut Green, where you have a mixed use, you have restaurants, entertainment that appeals to, at different times of the day, different age groups are there. So certainly we studied the impact on the public safety aspect of it. We discussed it a lot as we were doing this review. And part of that discussion, Ed presented that we have a significant number of OUI arrests, and certainly we know we have very high numbers of people being placed in protective custody as a result of overindulging, over-serving. We don't know exactly what's going on, but there's also a problem with underage drinking. So I think that the hospitality zone issue that we have is important. I think Larry's suggestion really is one that we had in our presentation, that there should be the creation of a group who will sit down and have the town as a resource for business owners, license holders, to identify what are the best ways to manage public safety and the abuses of alcohol that the town is actually facing as a result of being host to a hospitality zone such as Patriot Place or Chestnut Green. Thank you.
Thank you. Follow-up? Yes. Yep. Frank has a follow-up. We'll start, and that'll go to Larry.
It relates. So with the possibility of a casino, and this is one of the areas that I'm fuzzy on the exact rules in that state law. that created the casinos. My understanding is that there could be drinking at additional hours and free drinks, and the enforcement, which is now done by the Board of Selectmen, would be done by the ABCC, the State Alcoholics Beverages Control Commission. Please straighten me out if any of those are wrong. I could be wrong about those. And how does that play into Foxborough's picture of 43 licenses that many of us are saying here are a lot?
Well, Frank, I also remind you that it wasn't that long ago when the Board of Selectmen suspended the license of a proprietor for 10 days for serving alcohol. So we've tried to be very serious about it. We've tried to enforce the rules. We've tried to send a very strong message to those who have a license that we don't tolerate folks that don't follow the rules. One of the issues you brought up is an issue that, again, when you have a proposal in front of you, this is one of the pros and cons you have to think about. The state would control the alcohol license at that level. And so we would have to understand the legislation. We'd have to understand the rules that are being written. As someone said earlier, we haven't written all the rules. They just put everybody on the commission. And they're saying it's going to take them 12 months to 15 months just to figure out what they want to do and how they want to do it before they'd ever be ready to even look at any proposals. So that's going to be one that we have to look at very carefully. When the proposal's before people, we've got to look at whether or not, what controls are in place, how the state's going to control those, how they're going to enforce those, what kinds of hours, what kind of operations, those kinds of things. It is an important factor that has to be into the whole consideration before someone decides whether they vote yes or no on a casino.
Martha?
When you look at what the state probably will be planning, they will be the ones that will oversee those liquor licenses. So I think it's going to be, they'll look at whatever the resort or hotel or whatever they're presenting, and it'll be up to the state, I think, to decide how many liquor licenses they're probably going to allow in those areas. And they will have they'll have the control over them. So I think at that point, we might be a little bit out of the picture. It's not like we're handing out these liquor licenses. Unfortunately, they're the ones that'll be in charge of it.
Ginny?
According to the gaming bill, the state does control the licensing of liquor licenses on the grounds of the casino. And the town of Foxborough would lose complete control over the licenses. The Gambling Commission does not dictate the liquor license. It's in the statute, and the statute is very clear that the state will control whatever goes on there, and the state police will be the controlling entity. The Foxborough Police Department, they will be able to work out a deal with the state, but basically the town of Foxborough and the Foxborough Police Department will have no control of liquor licenses. If there is any violations, the town of Foxborough, the Board of Selectmen, will not be meting out punishment or pulling licenses. They can't do it. It'll be the state. And believe me, I worked up in the state legislature. You do not want the state of Massachusetts controlling anything because you lose local control.
Lorraine?
Ginny's right in that there would be no local control of those liquor licenses in the casino, according to the legislation. I think really this takes us to mitigation, the term mitigation. The towns are being offered mitigation. Mitigation means being given something to deal with a problem. So the town of Foxborough will not have control over those licensees. However, the town of Foxborough will be faced with dealing with all of the fallout, the drunk drivers, the increased crime, everything that comes along with alcohol and alcohol abuse. So again, there will be a new concentration of liquor licenses in our town, yet the Board of Selectmen will no longer have authority to impose any of our local regulations on those licensees. And I think that's a tremendous disadvantage to the town, and again, why mitigation is being offered. Thank you.
The next question will come from Heather, and she will pose it to Martha.
I'm going to go, I think, relatively simple with this one. What qualities do you have that you think makes you the best choice for Board of Selectmen?
Sitting at this table, I am the longest sitting elected official. I've dealt with issues on the school side, been very well aware of what's going on in the town. I've lived here for 64 years. I think I've made good judgment calls on a lot of things that have come before the school committee, and I would like to bring that energy and excitement to the town side. There's a lot of issues that are facing us, regardless of the casino. And sitting on this committee for the next 3 years, I want to deal with those issues. I want to make sure that our seniors can stay in this town, because I'm 64 years old, so in a few years I'll be retiring and be in a fixed income bracket. So I think my heart and soul belongs in this town. I've raised 5 children here. I have 9 grandchildren who are being raised in this town. My husband and I will celebrate our 43rd wedding anniversary. I've watched a lot of things change in this town. I've watched a lot of people run because they're angry, upset about an issue, and then watch everything else falls apart once they address that issue. That's a huge concern for me, and I think I'm well-rounded, and I have common sense, and I'm fair. I'll listen. I'll make my judgments based on what's put in front of me, and represent this entire town all the time.
Thank you. Same question to Ginny?
Well, I think I have experience in municipal government through my work on the advisory committee, but I also have experience at the state level with my work as a state representative up in Boston. I am very concerned about the direction in which this town may be heading. And I'm also concerned about the how should I say it? The turmoil that this town has been put through for almost a year. I think this town's better than that. I think the Board of Selectmen has had a tough time because they have not been unified or working together. And I think there's been a lot of finger-pointing, a lot of excuses, a lot of taking credit for things that have been done by other people in the town. I think that this town has changed. I think there's talk about a lot of bullying, a talk about disrespect. And I'm very disheartened about that, because what I've seen, I have not seen that. I mean, this casino issue has definitely affected the town, and it has divided the town. But in one way, it has brought people together also, because the people who want to keep Foxborough the way it is are united. And what they're trying to do is preserve our community for not only the present generation, but for future generations. Thank you.
Same question to Lorraine?
The reason that I want to be reelected to the Board of Selectmen is I love Foxborough. I love being able to do what I think is in the best interest of the town. I think my background gives me, my professional background gives me a skill set that is important as we deal with issues that come before the Board of Selectmen. To me, one of the most important things is that we have to conduct our business in the public eye. We have to be able to be judged by the residents and the businesses in this town as to how we conduct our business. And I'm concerned that that has not always been the case, and I'm committed to keep our business conducted publicly. Transparency is a word that is used, that is not always applied consistently. I think that's very important. I will bring that to this board, continue to bring that to this board. I have a track record of accomplishing goals and objectives that have been set out by the board. I have demonstrated that I can collaborate with other board members, citizens, businesses. I think this is a critical time for the town, that we have to have a cohesive board. This is not a time to upset the management of the town, the administration of the town. By upset, I mean dismantle. This is not a time to dismantle what I think are the good works of our town council. We are at a critical point and are very vulnerable. We need to stay united. We need to stay strong. And I think I can help a Board of Selectmen accomplish that. Thank you.
Question to Larry?
Heather, before I answer your questions, to go back to Frank's for a second, mitigation included putting sidewalks on Beach Street, so it doesn't always mean something negative. And when we would sit down to look at this proposal, we would, as a Board of Selectmen, look at all the impacts before we decided how many additional police or fire would be needed, and they'd have to pay for all of that. To answer your question, Heather, I think my business experience, I think my municipal experience, but most importantly, my compassion for people. Judy and I have given a lot to this community. We've spent a lot of time with seniors. We have funded senior programs. We've funded programs in the schools. We've seen every aspect of this community, from the young to the old and everybody in between. We've worked to collect money for heating assistance so that people who can't afford heat can heat their homes. We know clearly how hard it is for people to pay their taxes, for people to buy their groceries, for people to make ends meet. The Lord has been very, very fortunate, shined upon Judy and I. We've been very successful. We've tried to share that. So I think that we know the community. We all up here love the community. We may have different views in the committee, but we've all given a lot back to this community. I think that Judy and I understand all levels of the community. We listen to them, not just the ones that want to tell us what they want to hear or to tell us what we want to hear. We listen to all the people, and we understand what their issues are, and we've gone out and worked to help them solve their problems outside of the Board of Selectmen and inside the Board of Selectmen. And trying to help raise funds and do things that will help them really helps you see. Too many people in this community think that Foxborough is a very well-off community. When you realize over 10% of our students are on free and reduced lunches, when you talk to the seniors and find out how they're struggling, you realize that there are a lot of folks in Foxborough hanging on by their fingernails. We've seen that, and that compassion has driven us to help them both from a private standpoint, from a financial standpoint, and volunteering our time to try to make the community a better community.
Thank you. I think you'll all be glad to hear this statement. Now for our last question, and that will come from Frank to Ginny, and after we run through that question, we'll go to the closing statement. So, Frank, a question to Ginny.
Thank you. Ginny, how would you assess the relationship between the town and the craft group now at this time? And what would you recommend, if anything, to change it? The relationship between the town and the craft group right now.
Well, it's obvious from reports that have hit the newspapers and just actions at the Board of Selectmen meetings, that I would say that right now the working relationship with the craft organization in the town of Foxborough is a little dicey at this point. I would strive on the Board of Selectmen to come to an agreement between the craft organization and the town to work together to iron out any problems that arise. I think we are business partners with the craft organization. Let's face it. I mean, it's a very large employer in the town. It pays probably 7-8% of the taxes in the town. But also, we have 92 to 93% of the taxes are paid by the people of Foxborough. We've always had a good working relationship with the town, with the craft organization. They have been successful because the town and the people in the town government have been working with the craft organization so they can be successful. And when I went to a focus group, and I told that to Mr. Kraft, thank you very much for what you have done for the town. But I just want to remind you, your success at Patriot Place, your success at Gillette Stadium was due to the cooperation of the government of the town of Foxborough and the people. It's mutual. And I would like to get back to that good working relationship.
Thank you. Same question to Lorraine.
The Kraft organization is a very important business to our town, and they certainly have to watch for their own interests and their agenda. But I believe really that it's important that our relationship with the number one taxpayer should be a good working relationship. I'm not so sure I want to characterize the relationship as damaged so much as it's changing. I think it's changing more to a business type of relationship. And I think that's probably what's causing this friction right now. I think it needs to continue going into the direction of becoming a more business-like relationship, because I think we as members of the board have a responsibility, we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the town's interests are always represented. I think having a business-like relationship as opposed to a friend or benefactor relationship is really the one that the Board of Selectmen should establish. I know that there have been statements made that Mr. Kraft is very sensitive, and I think to me that represents more of a relationship of a friend than of a business partner. I think focusing in the direction of a business relationship will make it easier for the town and the Kraft Group to work collaboratively going forward, and we have a lot of good work to do with the Kraft Group, and I look forward to being able to do that. Thank you.
Same question, Larry.
With former selectmen that say it's the worst relationship we've had in 25 years. The relationship started downhill 3 years ago when 2 members of the Board of Selectmen went up to the Kraft organization and attempted to unionize their employees. I don't care if you're the Dairy Queen or Stop and Shop or any business in town, it is not very respectful of the Board of Selectmen to try to unionize your people. I think that Robert and I debated the meals tax. He was opposed to the meal tax. I supported the meals tax. But we did it in a respectful way. There were no name calling. You read in the newspaper today, we've got town hall leadership that is name calling, is disrespectful. When there was the hurricane, when there was the Halloween storm, who was the first one to offer us lights, to offer cash so people could buy food, to offer ice? They didn't have to say, we have a business relationship, and so what are you going to do for me? They care about the town. And where this gets broken is when you have people who think power is everything, and they try to browbeat them. And that's what town hall leadership has been trying to do. And going to the paper and making fun of them and accusing them of things has hurt the relationship. I think to get it back on track, we need to be able to sit down. We have a common interest. They want this town to be successful. They want to be successful. We have to get calm heads to prevail, to sit down and work through things. I still hope that we could work through some of the outstanding issues we have. We were very successful in convincing them to drop the lawsuit, drop the request for $50,000 in legal fees. But there's a lot more work that has to happen. But it all starts with respect. And there hasn't been that respect from certain people at Town Hall, and that has been problematic. And the Board of Selectmen has been unable to control those folks. And we have to get control of those folks because they work for the Board of Selectmen. They're town employees. And so it's all about making sure that we protect the town, but we protect the town by treating every one of our taxpayers, large or small, with respect and dignity.
Thank you. Same question to Martha.
Sum it all up, I guess. At this point, I personally would feel as though it's a totally shattered relationship. It lacks respect. It lacks people being able to sit down and work together. We will be as good or as bad as Patriot Place. Everybody runs for office, always advocates, we have to do something on Route 1. Well, they did it. And unfortunately, if we don't learn to work together, and if we don't respect one another, we have nothing, absolutely nothing. When you turn around and you start threatening to take, you can get somebody to pay extra money, you can, the meals tax, whatever. But when you turn around and you threaten to take a man's land, that's crossing the line. And I think when you read the eminent domain statute, you can only take it for a public use. You can't take it for public greed, which is about a money issue, because we felt as though we should get more money because somebody said we should. And right now, we have nothing coming in on that money. We have no water and sewer deal coming down the pike. And unless we can sit down with them and earn respect with them again and work something out, we're in serious trouble. So I think at this point, it's totally shattered. I'm not sure what it's going to take together. I don't know if the people who are sitting on the board or people who are sitting in town hall will be able to sit down with these people, if they'll even want to sit down with them. Maybe, fresh blood is what we need at this point. But I know we've always had a great relationship with the craft organization on the school side. Maybe that's something I can bring to the town side. And it is called respect. Being able to sit down, it doesn't mean you give each other exactly what you want, but you've got to find a middle road. And unfortunately, right now, we're lacking that. So I'm very disappointed, very disappointed.
Thank you. It's tight. It's got to be a real quick one.
Yes, this is a short answer. Talking about the importance of having better relationship with the craft organization, should the members of the Board of Selectmen who will be talking and do talk with Robert Kraft, should they take a pledge that if they have a private conversation with Mr. Kraft, they would come back at the next Selectmen's meeting and say, I had this conversation with Mr. Kraft or whoever it was. Would that be appropriate?
I think it's very appropriate. Anytime anybody on the school committee has a meeting with someone, they should come back and share it with the rest of the committee. Why should one person know something and not somebody else? The problem is when somebody tells you something and asks you to either hold off on it because we're not sure what the direction, they're just kind of trying to lead you and tell you this might be coming down the pike. And that's when we get into somebody's lying, somebody's sneaking, and it gets wild after a while. But if you set up a meeting to go up and talk to somebody, if I do on the school committee, I'm required to come back and tell the rest of the committee what went on in that meeting and share it with them. They're entitled to that information, Frank. And it should work the same way on the town side.
Ginny, same follow-up?
Well, that's absolutely right. Anytime any member of the Board of Selectmen has a conversation with an entity, I think it's their obligation to inform the other members of the Board of Selectmen. It's only a common courtesy, but also it's a way of working together so that no one is kept in the dark. And I think that's very important for the reputations of the boards and to build confidence in the board by the residents. The residents have to know that the Board of Selectmen or any other board or commission is above board in their actions.
Okay. Same question, Lorraine?
Frank, this is really what I was referring to earlier when I was saying that we as a board have to do our work in the public eye. We have to report these types of meetings with each other and discuss it publicly. If we are told by any entity that this is a secret, that only you can know for some period of time, we have an obligation as a member of the board, because we are only one of 5 people. We have an obligation to tell that entity that that's not possible, because we all have to have the same information in order to represent the interests of the town in the most fair, in the best way, really. By not having that information, it puts board members at a disadvantage, and without the complete information, one can't really come to the best outcome of a decision. So I think it's very important to not even set that expectation for any entity that there would be that type of secrecy permitted.
Same question to Larry?
Frank, let's take the elephant and put it right on the table. You're referring to the meeting last summer that Kevin Pecos and I had with the craft organization. And after that meeting, Kevin Pecos wrote a comprehensive memo to the Board of Selectmen. He laid out all the issues we talked about with the exception of one. He didn't identify Mr. Wynn's name, and the reason why he didn't is the Kraft organization asked us not to disclose his name at the time. They didn't have a finalized agreement with him, and they didn't want others trying to get him for their property. But the town manager came back and he wrote a comprehensive memo. Don't anybody tell me that the Board of Selectmen, when they read that memo and Kevin asked if they wanted to support a special town meeting warrant article to change the zoning, they voted no. They wouldn't have changed, if Kevin had come back and said, oh, by the way, don't forget Larry and I met and this is what it was, they wouldn't have changed their vote. It's a red herring. The point is, we always share that information. And Kevin wrote a comprehensive memo, laid it all out. And I believed then and I believe today that it was an accurate memo. I said to the public through your newspaper that there was an unintended consequence that resulted from that some people felt as though it was not fully disclosed. Both Kevin and I thought it was fully disclosed in his memo. I apologize for the unintended consequence, but the bottom line is the information in that memo was clear, crisp, concise, and everyone on that Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board who voted knew what they were voting on, and it wouldn't have changed their mind with any additional information.
Okay. We need to move on quickly to closing statements, and we will start with Lorraine.
Thank you again to the Jaycees for the opportunity to be here this evening to discuss our race with you, and to thank you also to the voters for tuning in. For the past 3 years, I've had the honor of serving the people of Foxborough as a member of the Board of Selectmen. However, my ties to this community run much deeper than these past 3 years. As a mother of 2 I-Go school children, I became involved in town politics due to local aid cuts, and as a result spent 4 years on the advisory committee, the last 2 as chairman, reviewing town finances and making recommendations for town meeting. After my experience on the advisory committee, I decided it was time to step up and bring my skills to the Board of Selectmen. My family and I love living here in Foxborough, and I know you do too. My concerns for and commitment to this community remain unwavering. The issues before the board require reason, integrity, and a commitment to the residents of Foxborough. My records show that I will research the issues, respect the opinions of others, reach the appropriate conclusions, and represent the best interests of our community. I thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening and respectfully ask for your vote on Monday, May 7th. Together, we will build a better Foxborough where we put Foxborough first. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry, your closing statement?
Yes, again, thank you to the Jaycees, to Cable Access, and to Frank and Heather for your time this evening. I hope that the voters can clearly see the differences in the various candidates. As chairman this past year, I've guided us through some very tough times and some very tough topics. When you go back and check the record, you'll see that I fulfilled all of the promises that I made 3 years ago. Additionally, I've been a consensus builder on the Board of Selectmen. 2 quick examples. When the meals tax was first proposed, I urged the Board of Selectmen to use all the funds as a direct offset to property taxes. While the board took no action and the measure was defeated, I didn't give up. I then suggested, when we came to it again, that we use the money to exclusively fund the $50 million of unfunded retiree health care costs and start a long overdue road repair program. The town meeting approved it and the Board of Selectmen approved it. And based on the actual state payments this first year, those that thought it was going to impact sales negatively, it didn't. It has not impacted sales at all. And that $600,000 a year will save property taxpayers a fortune over the future. I also led the consensus building on Trader Joe's, as well as offering the compromise that helped get it approved last evening. Listening to the public, as I said earlier, I heard the concerns and suggested that we immediately convene the public forum. I've heard from some people that my position to allow all 11,000 voters decide the fate of the resort casino is reason enough not to vote for me. I understand that. But I've also heard from many others who have said that while they're opposed to the resort casino, they will vote for me based on what I've done for this community, both in office and in my personal life, and because of the leadership skills I bring to the table. I hope we have a record voter turnout. Our town needs every voice to be heard. We face many more issues as a community than the resort casino. I have tested experience, leadership, and a proven track record to help the community through these issues. I ask for your vote on May 7th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Martha, your closing statement?
I also would like to thank the Jaycees and Cable Access and Frank and Heather for coming tonight and asking such great questions. I have been fortunate to have been able to sit as a public official for the past 14 years and contribute to the education of your children. I realize the commitment it will take to be prepared and informed on the issues that are facing this town. I have lived my entire life in this town and am aware of the political climate that has been affecting our lives of late. I know if I sit at the selectmen's table, I will be representing each and every one of you on all the issues that will come before me. I will value your input and use it to help guide my decisions that could impact each and every one of you. When you make decisions, you need to hold yourself accountable. Special interests need to be put aside. You will be speaking for all our citizens. I will never take your trust lightly. This has become a one-issue campaign for some of our citizens. Please consider your choice wisely. There are far too many issues that will be lost in the shuffle if we don't consider who is sitting at this table representing you. The real future of this community and the direction we need to take needs strong, committed public servants. Hopefully, I have proven to you I have what it takes to serve all of you. Please consider voting for me in the upcoming election.
Ginny?
Okay, thanks, Dave. Once again, I would like to thank the Foxborough Jaycees, Foxborough Cable Access, Frank Mortimer, Heather McCarron, and my fellow candidates for Candidates Night. As we all know, every town election is important, and voting for your leaders is critical to ensure that you select individuals who reflect your views and be your voice when decisions are made. Every candidate tonight will make promises, and here are mine. I promise that I will represent you on the Board of Selectmen. My priority will always be what is best for the town of Foxborough because I have no other agenda than the town of Foxborough. I will work cooperatively with my fellow board members and other boards, commissions, and town employees to keep the town running smoothly and efficiently. I will work cooperatively with the business community to keep established business here and welcome new business opportunities to town. I will work cooperatively with our town manager, our finance director, and the advisory committee to maintain our town's exceptional financial situation. I will work cooperatively to bring stability back to this town after a year of volatility and turmoil. I will keep the town of Foxborough out of the headlines unless it is for something that reflects well on the town, because I want people to come to live in Foxborough, and I want our townspeople to once again be proud of our community. My promises may sound simple, but they are very profound. I will do my job so that others can do theirs to get our community back on track. I ask for your vote on May 7th so that I can keep my promises that I am making to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you to our candidates for selectmen. And I remind everybody you'll be able to vote for two of them for two available three-year terms on the Board of Selectmen. This brings our program to a close. I want to thank the candidates for taking time out of their busy campaign schedules to participate in tonight's broadcast. I also want to thank our media panelists, Frank Mortimer and Heather McCarron, for their efforts and great questions, of which there were 10, by the way. I needed to do something standing up here. Thank you to the Jaycees who assisted in this event, Monica Fisler, Kathy Brady, Bob Gillis, and Lauren Batar. Also, thanks again to all of the crew and staff of FCA for assisting the Jaycees with this program tonight. The citizens of Foxborough are fortunate to have such a skilled and professional crew that delivers quality community television for our education and enjoyment. Lastly, I'd like to thank the audience, both here in the studio and at home, for taking an active role in the upcoming election by viewing this program. It is our hope that the information in this broadcast has enabled you to make a more informed decision at the polls on May 7th. As a reminder, election polls are located at the John J. Ahern School on Mechanic Street, and they are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on May 7th, so please vote on May 7th. On behalf of the Foxborough Jaycees, I'm Dave Brown. Good night, good luck, and thank you for watching.